Welcome to Secrets from the Saddle podcast. I'm Sylvie, your host, fellow cyclist, bike club founder, cycling coach, bike race junkie, just truly super passionate about cycling. My journey with cycling started 20 years ago when I opened a spin studio, started a women's race team, and founded a women's only cycling club called Cycle Fit Chicks. I'm super thrilled to reveal all aspects that make the world of cycling operate. I'm so excited to be able to bring you interesting people from around the world, pro cyclists, recreational cyclists, coaches, event organizers, bike shop owners, everything and everyone you need to know or ever wondered about when it comes to cycling. I know you'll enjoy this episode. This podcast episode is sponsored by Shopify Queen Sarah Jensel of Jensel & Co. Do you currently have a Shopify site selling products or services that aren't performing as well as you're hoping? Or do you have a product or service you'd love to sell, but you have no idea where to start? Well, my girl, Sarah Jensel, the Shopify Queen, is a person to talk to. She is amazing and brilliant at branding and is currently helping me completely revamp my website on Shopify to showcase my new brand and selling my products. So if this sounds like something you've been looking for, please reach out to her on IG at Sarah Jensel, that's Jansel. Leave her the code Sylvie, that's Sylvie, and she will add you to her free Shopify Facebook group, where she coaches weekly on Shopify strategies and has tons of content to help you in your Shopify journey to building your online business. So don't forget, DM her on Instagram at Sarah Jensel, Jansel, and leave her the code Sylvie. She'll reach out and add you to her community. Thank you very much and have an amazing day and enjoy the episode. All right, welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, all things cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie Daou. And we have back the beautiful Allyson Davis, who we had on the podcast with Jill Yesko in episode 229, talking about the documentary Uphill Climb, which is dedicated to the Tour de Femmes, which is coming back this year as part of the Tour de France. So I'm so excited to have Allyson here because we're going to be talking more about the film. We're going to be talking about her background and everything else so that we can really showcase and expose more of my audience to this amazing film that will be coming out. Now, before we bring Allyson out, here's a little bit of background on her. So Allyson Davis is an award-winning veteran of television, sports production, global marketing, and brand partnerships, athlete marketing, and brand development. I think I should just hire you for my own. I need your help. In addition to years spent in leadership roles at companies like Fox Sports, E! Entertainment Networks, NBC, Universal Sports, Red Bull, she has started or co-founded 3 of her own companies, including Active Lifestyle Magazine. Wow. Presently, she's executive producing the documentary called Uphill Climb, which is what we are going to be talking more about. And so welcome, Allyson, to the podcast again.
Thank you.
All right. So I know we're going to talk about the documentary, but first we have to find out how you got into cycling, because I know that you're into cycling.
A little bit.
I hope so.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as kind of twisted and far back as I guess my resume is that you just read. So I was thinking about that in high school, actually. One of my best friends in high school and I, where we grew up in a small town in outside of San Francisco called Mill Valley. There's a famous mountain there called Mount Tamalpais, which is where arguably people would say is the birthplace of mountain biking. Oh. However, I chose the road instead of the dirt. And in high school, my girlfriend Jill and I were decided that we were going to train to wake up really early one morning and go ride Mount Tam. And we trained. I don't know. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no, nobody was
That's
telling
usually the
us.
way it starts, right?
Yeah.
No
Right.
clue, got a plan.
Yeah. It's like, I want to go climb that mountain. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I think this is what I'm supposed to go do. So I spent the night at her house. Like the day came, we were all excited. The day came, spent the night at her house. We set the alarm clock for, it was like 4:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and got up. It was pitch black. It was freezing cold. There was fog. And we kind of looked at each other and went, nah, and went back to sleep. So never happened. Yeah, flash forward. I went off to college. I left the area for a couple of years, and then I finished back up in San Francisco. I met a guy who was training for the Kona World Championships and Ironman World Championships. He got me back on a bike, and we started riding. And actually, one of the first rides I did with him, a really big ride, I had a Puck 10-speed, shifters on the down tube. I had pedals with the toe covers on them, not clipless. Yeah. I had a pair of gray Keds. I maybe had some proper shorts, but I'm not sure. I don't really remember, because all I remember is the feeling of making it to the top of the climb and wanting more. And that was the day I fell in love with cycling. And I guess he was looking for me. But one day he called me up, and he used to call me Wilma, and he was Fred. And he was like, Wilma, I found the bike for you. And it was a Raleigh 555 aluminum bike, same that Andy Hampstead had been riding on. So I kind of knew what it was, used, and it was my size, and it was perfect. And so that became my first real bike. So that we retired the Puck, got the Raleigh. And then the next big ride was Mount Tam, and we did it. And the first phone call I made was to my girlfriend, Jill.
Now, were you going to climb that hill on your road bikes or your mountain bikes with your girlfriend?
Oh no, road. I didn't have
road, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know from mountain biking back then, okay. Ironically. Yeah, no, because all I had was a road bike. So I used it to get around.
Hey,
yeah.
Guess what?
Yeah, I totally did. Yeah, 100%. It was great.
What'd she say?
She was excited. She was all happy. But that really was the beginning of falling in love with the sport. And, it's, and I know we'll get to the film, but, one of the things that is really important to me is when I started riding, there were really no women around that were riding, and riding, I would say fiercely, with the guys, because there were no local races that I knew of. I didn't really have a funnel, and a clear funnel that I knew of how to get myself into any type of real competitive cycling. So I was a junior varsity and varsity athlete throughout high school, but more in traditional sports, swimming, softball, basketball. And cycling was just kind of this thing on the side that I was doing. So it's been, I've been riding with guys for so long. And same thing though, my bike was all, hard saddles, and it's just not necessarily exactly what we women need. But I didn't know.
We didn't know anything about that.
No, exactly. So it didn't matter. Yeah, I just rode. Right. I don't care. Give me a bike, I'll go somewhere.
You know what? Sometimes that's the best way to ride.
Yeah.
Because I think about the bike that I had. I think it was a 10-speed that my dad found in the garbage, and we rode that until I could ride it. Like I was big, like the proper size for the actual bike. And then I would ride it to town to work and back. And I can't think of like too many people that were riding bicycles. Maybe farm kids like us, and it's like, we didn't know what we didn't know. And it didn't matter because we just rode our bikes.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So fast forward, where does
Yeah.
cycling take you?
I mean, it's pretty much taken me everywhere I am throughout my career. It's when 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 I was with that boyfriend and we went to,
Good
uh,
boyfriends.
he
Yay.
he was a good boyfriend. And I went to Kona, to Hawaii, even though it was triathlon. It was the big network that was covering it at the time. I worked my way over, and I was willing to work for free because I just wanted to give myself something to do while he was, acclimating to the climate and everything. And I ended up getting a paid job being a production assistant because I knew who all the athletes were. And what happened on that trip was so amazing for me because that was the moment that I had oh my God, I can do this for my living. Like, I can actually do sports and television and production as my job. That's amazing. I want more of that, please. Yes, please. So
Sign me up.
sign me up. So I started to work freelance. I did a few other gigs after that. I did the Paradise Triathlon in St. Croix, where I had an interesting experience with very young Lance Armstrong, who had started out as a triathlete. That was fun. And then I moved along, and one thing led to another. And I had a mentor up in the Bay Area who basically was like, "Look, if you really want to make television and film your livelihood, you have to move to LA." And I was hell bent on not doing that. And then 2 weeks later, I found myself in LA. So I basically got into television, film, entertainment production. So I was not in sports anymore, yet I was still trying to train and compete myself. But it was those two things back in the day did not really mesh well. It was kind of like oil and vinegar. And when I would show up to a car commercial, production where you're shooting sunrises and sunsets, and I'd set my alarm super early so I could get my run in or something ahead of time, people just looked at me like I had 3 heads. Like, who are you? And you're crazy. So I knew it was time for me to do something different. And I started to work for a magazine called City Sports Magazine, which was a regional health, sports, and fitness publication. And it was the only other industry I knew I wanted to be in, was something around sports. So the guy that was the publisher was amazing. I loved it. I developed a lot during that time with the magazine, and I ended up becoming an associate publisher. But one of the parts of the publication that I created and brought to life was something called California Wheelin', which was a special cycling insert. I'm trying to remember if it was quarterly or what it was, but essentially it was almost like an old school advertorial tool to help cycling and cycling events really make a deeper connection with the California cycling market. And that's kind of where I started to identify and understand the power of these grassroots, communities, and really how to build off of them. So that turned into, then I started my own magazine, and that was called California Active. And same thing. Yeah, that was great. It was a lot of fun. I had some amazing talent around me on a magazine that I kind of positioned as the MTV Rolling Stone of health, sports, and fitness, which is behind me. That's what are in the frames are my covers from my magazine.
Nice.
Which was pretty cool. But it was, I didn't go to business school. I mean, that was my MBA. I basically gave myself my MBA with a little help from my family supporting me. I probably flew a little close to the sun in terms of, adult things like insurance and, car insurance and things like that.
I think we all do we need that? It's kind of stuff, good help from our family.
I mean, you do what you got to do. Girl on a mission.
Yeah.
And then, really from there, I was trying to sell the magazine. It was not a great time to be selling a print product. I was fortunate because I had been dropping off my magazine at a regional sports network called Prime Ticket. And I made a list one day of places that I'd want to go work after the magazine. And it was like Rolling Stone, MTV, Prime Ticket. And I called Prime Ticket up, and there was this, they just created a new director of marketing position, and I ended up getting it. And I realized I was back in where I'm supposed to be, in sports television, and got a ton of experience there. It rebranded that into Prime Sports, and then Fox came in, and then I rebranded and launched Fox Sports West and Fox Sports West 2. And that put me back on my right path.
Wow. Okay, so Fox Sport, but that is like Fox TV, like what we know right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, that's more
Right.
traditional, stick and ball.
Right. Oh, yeah. Football.
Football, hockey league,
Yeah.
basketball league. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Not so much the cycling there, what was nice is that I rode my bike the entire time. And even though it may not have been the content I was dealing with at that time, a lot of people who were in my world, in my business world, were starting to ride bikes. And I started to
Oh,
have, for me, cycling was golf for what a lot of
right.
people is here, where they could conduct a lot of meetings on the course. I had no interest in golf. Um, and so it was cool because there were a bunch of these guys who were riding, and like, let's just go for a ride. And that,
Oh, that's nice. So like more of the CEOs, like the other directors.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was really that, and that was really how the bike was totally like just integrated into my entire career path. Yeah, moving forward. And that was, we were talking earlier about my one stint when I was at E Networks, um, which is, as I say, it's kind of where I forgot who I was and bumped my head, except for my boss at the time was a cyclist. And in July, we would get the in-house feed of the tour, and we would ride. And so that was, again, even though I was, on the outside working in this
Mm-hmm.
entertainment television network, the people around me were cyclists. And that's what
Oh, that is
kept me
so,
kind of,
I would to say like unusual to have,
yeah. And maybe it's
but
because
it's
it's
nice to
California.
see
Yeah.
that. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Yeah.
That more of it like that. And like I was sharing with you, I'm going to do that Ride to Conquer Cancer, and there's a lot of corporate teams in
Yeah.
there, and so there's a lot of, so Toronto, I guess, is a, well, it's a bigger cycling mecca, I guess. Ottawa is pretty big, but Toronto has it, like the this infrastructure, like everything. So it seems more corporate related. Corporations are more into the active lifestyle stuff, or
I
maybe
think
they just,
so. Yeah. And they have teams. I mean, even when I
yeah,
was at
yeah.
Universal Sports Network, NBC, which
Oh,
had
cool.
a stake in it, had, triathlon team. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. And I see a lot of companies out there. Disney has a I don't know if they still do or not, but they had a triathlon team. So a lot of the studios have very active people, and you see them out there for sure all the time
That
on the
is
road. Yeah.
really good to know.
Yeah.
Like, because we all need to kind of migrate that way. And, there's
Yeah.
always somebody that needs to like spearhead the activity or the functions. But I
Yeah.
love hearing more companies being into like doing events together, encouraging, giving rebates, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
really nice to
important, and
see.
it's
Yeah.
bonding. I mean, it's really, you get teamwork, and
Hmm.
nobody, and not everybody has to be an athlete, and it's
Yeah.
fun. It's a lot of
We
fun.
got electric bikes now.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
can get on a
Everybody,
bike.
everybody get on a bike. Exactly.
Like, I don't know if you can afford one, but holy crap.
They're a lot of fun
They
though.
they're like a small car.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, how did you then um come to meet Jill and then be brought on to that documentary? Because that's a huge undertaking. Well, undertaking. I mean, it's part of your background, but just talk about that because this
Yeah.
is what we're going to talk about, the uphill climb, the
Yeah.
documentary coming out next year, March.
March, April, spring of 2023, just in
Yeah.
time for the season, for sure, the cycling
Yeah.
season. Yeah. So I had a few more stops on my tour so far to get me to Jill. But the thing that I've always followed in my career is my passion and my gut. And it's never steered me wrong. I was I did some really important work. I was at Red Bull Media House for a couple years, which is where I was reconnected with Rebecca Rush, and who is also a Red Bull athlete and an amazing human. And we had a conversation one day where she asked me a question that was basically if I could take a look at what she had going on in her world from a marketing standpoint, that she needed some marketing help. And she started to send me information. And when I took a look at really what she had built and where she was, I thought, oh my God, like I love building brands and scaling businesses in the sports space. And I saw what might be possible with her. So one thing led to another, and I became her business partner for a couple of years, which was really amazing. And then after that, I was at a high-end cycling apparel company for kind of a hot minute. It wasn't a long stint.
You're like, yeah, no.
It was great. The people were amazing. But it really, I was trying to do something for them that really just, I don't think was quite possible at that time. And, but again, they're amazing, amazing humans. But it gave me a minute to allow myself to go back and really think about what do I really want to do next? What's really, where's my heart right now? And I was missing my television, my sports, my content, working with athletes on kind of that world stage. And I'd said to my husband, there's a documentary in me, but I don't know what the topic is yet, but I feel like at some point in my life, I'm going to make a film. And he's amazing and super supportive and a cyclist also. And said,
better be.
but yeah, and said, and basically was like, okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. Right. Great. Awesome. And as I do when I'm thinking about what's next, I started to network with people and read the trades on a regular basis and, kind of do some journaling and thinking. And I have, when I go on rides, I feel like there's different types of rides. There's like the community ride, where it's just a big party. There's the very serious, I'm training, don't talk to me ride. And then there's kind of that meditative ride where I just go by myself, where I just need to kind of process and think through. And I don't even know where I'm going, but it's not the point of where I'm going. It's more about the thinking time on the bike.
Oh my God. I am totally there with you. Like,
yeah,
I've been on these rides. I hate to interrupt you, but
yeah.
I've just lately I'm like, I'm gonna bring my earbuds and maybe I'll listen to a podcast that I downloaded, but I never put them in 4 hours. And I stopped and I did a couple podcast episodes. Like, it's just the wheels, and I started, voice to text, like notes and stuff. I'm like, that's when I think I don't, probably you do most of your creative thinking.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I hope you capture it too, because it's just like,
Rebecca actually taught me that trick of bringing a smaller voice recorder with you, because it's like hard. The phone is kind of a little,
oh, that's a good idea.
Clunky and chunky. Yeah. So I do, however, I forget. And so I'll stop and I'll like write down notes on my phone, which doesn't make for a great Strava file, but it's a, but whatever.
This is your creative ride, right?
Exactly. That's why I try. Yes, I try. So I happened to read one of the trades, and I was reading about this woman, Jill Yesko, who just started a women's podcast on an NPR station. And it rang to me because she was telling stories about women that you don't necessarily hear of. And there's so many more of those stories than of the stories of the people that you know. I mean,
Right.
so I thought, wow, I know some cool women in sports. Maybe, I could just connect with her and have a conversation. And at the very least, tell her about some of these amazing women that might be of interest to her for her show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent her a LinkedIn, just an invite. And I got this really amazing note back that said, "So nice to meet you. Thanks for sending me an invite. I'd love to learn more about you and tell you about this documentary film I'm working on about the Women's Tour de France." And I think I fell off my chair.
You're like, sweetie.
I literally was like, I think I said to my husband, I think I'm going to start to believe in manifestation now, because I mean, from the time that I had literally said to him, I just don't know what the title is, to when this happened, was like within a week. And so Jill and I had a couple of video calls, and shortly after we started chatting, she asked me if I would become the executive producer. And it was just a no-brainer for me. I had to say yes, no matter what.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it's about telling the story of the women from the 80s, who are legends at this point for the rest of us, on the roadside of the world. And again, just having been around somebody like Rebecca was really amazing to see somebody who's like a pioneer in our sport, no matter the discipline of it, and really understanding what trailblazers they were back when they were in their prime doing their thing,
Yeah.
racing and, just trying to get their voice. It was really, it's an important story to tell. And so I felt like no matter what, I had to be part of that project.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now, so I know that like when we were talking to both you and Jill, like Jill was by herself and then she brought you on. So now it's just the two of you. So is there a full team now that you have moving forward? Like, is that
Yeah.
something that you brought with you to help facilitate the yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
finishing of the
coming
project?
together. It's coming
Yeah.
together. So we're raising funds right now, so that we can get ourselves over to France in July, to
Mhm.
shoot interviews with the current peloton and the people around them, and then the start of this year's Tour de Femme, and a few other iconic shots that we want to get. So we do have a crew that's coming with us out there. And then we're interviewing editors right now for to help us finish when we come back. So it's all coming together. There's lots of parallel paths happening to pull it together.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be happier being back in a producer role.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. So tell me a little bit about like the plans moving like for this summer, because I know that you're going to France. You're going to be around the peloton for the whole Tour de Femme. Now, is it a full 21 days? No way.
It's not.
18?
It's not.
15?
It's 9 stages,
Oh, it's
and
9
we're
stages.
not actually going to follow the whole race,
Oh,
because
okay.
they are part of the story. They would not be where they are today without the women from the 80s. But this
Right.
is really about telling that story, the historic story. And Jill's already captured several of the interviews with some of the key women. She herself was on an 83 national team, so she knows and has relationships with a lot of these women.
Yeah.
And I think that they've all been excited to, really have finally their story told, in a really meaningful way. So we're we want to show that connection though from the past to today, and a look ahead where it's going. And I do think, 2014, when I was at Universal Sports Network, There was Catherine Bertine was working really hard to get
Mm-hmm.
the tour event organizer to bring back a women's event, and they did. It was a 1 day event called La Course by Tour de France.
Yeah.
And I was on the network side, encouraging television coverage of the women's race, because I knew how important women in cycling were to, not just the sport, but the brands that support the sport. I mean, that we're
Oh, yeah, for
consumers,
sure.
and so there's a great ecosystem that was being missed. And it was frustrating for me too, not to be able to drive that forward back then. Or I did it as what I could, at least in that moment in time. So there's also this connection that I have with the past, at least from 2014, because the women's racing kind of starts and stops and starts and stops. But what I will say is that this is the first time I believe it's not going away. It's here. I mean, there's a 3-year commitment by ASO for the women's event. Every day, like yesterday, I think there was another announcement with the RCS that, with the Giro d'Italia, there's more women's racing coming out of Italy. You've got Paris-Roubaix, which was phenomenal racing this year. And I think that the more and more audiences just start understanding, like, holy crap, like the women's racing, and I've heard this come out of men and women's mouths, saying it's actually more exciting than the men's. Like, people have to you just need to watch it, just give it a try. And it's pretty incredible what's happening now. So, but again, I can't, I go back to the women from the 80s. I mean, the grit. They did I don't, it's kind of mind-boggling.
We just have to look at the pictures to get a good feel.
Yeah.
To compare those pictures.
Yeah. And they had, they did 19 stages back then.
Yeah.
They had 1 bike per athlete. They had, we're going to get into in the film, the nutrition and the training and the support or lack thereof. And it's not a comparison, about men and women, but we will show, just so people get a really good, clear understanding of really just how incredible these women were as athletes, with what they had to work with and how they just did it. I mean, it kind of goes back to our conversation early on, where it's like, better not to know, and you just do it. For the love and the passion. I mean, that's what they did it for. The love and that's what I believe today's Peloton does it for too. Only, they now have, I think, 6 bikes for something.
And a bit of a salary.
Yeah, a little, maybe. Yeah. I mean, there's work to do there too, but for sure. But at least they have, and the conversation about, maternity and maternity leave, because it's hard for a lot of female athletes when they're in their prime. You're also in your prime child rearing years. And, we have to make hard decisions as professional athletes that, again, I'm not comparing apples to apples, but it's just different for us. And so men don't have to decide, it's just like me and my career too. Do I have to put my career on hold while I'm having children? I don't want to, per se. I love my career, but I also love my children, and I have to, there's only so much to give. And so how do you balance that? Which is, whether you're on a bike or behind a desk, it's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, that would be interesting to talk to somebody about that, if they were to leave the Peloton too, because that's, for a woman, that's a long, I don't want to say a long commitment, but the marriage, the conception, the pregnancy, the after the pregnancy. I mean, I don't know if you watched Catherine Prendrell from Canada. She was a mountain biker, and she gave birth last year, February. I interviewed her like 2 weeks before she gave birth. So excited. but she still decided to go and do the Olympic run on the mountain bike. And this, but here's the thing, like, she's a new mom. You know, the training intensity is just like way beyond, like, I think what you can give and be a mom, like a new mom at the same time, to be ready in such short notice. And
Oh, for sure. I mean,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I watched her, and because she's been to, what, I don't know, 6 Olympics, like, crazy. She's been in mountain biking for a very long time. Um and yeah, and it
Yeah.
didn't, like, I mean, I think, not that I'm going to say that it showed, but I mean, the competition was pretty fierce, and she didn't do as well as, she thought,
Yeah,
but
but she did it. And I mean,
she did it.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, her body probably wasn't fully healed and, or whatever. And it's, there's a lot going on. And then not to mention, like, if
Yeah.
you're breastfeeding and what it does
Yeah.
when you're, all that other,
The
like,
fatigue.
there's just, there's so much to have to think about. And it's, again, it's I think about world-class athletes, and I was on the other side of, the camera, having this kind of, you know, high level role, and the same thing, and working mostly with men, and senior executives, and having kids and coming back. And it's, coming back to your A game, it takes you a minute
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get back there, but you get back there. But
Yeah.
again, for as an athlete, that's next level. And now the stakes are much higher. And I mean, oh my God, it's so exciting to see the level of competition out there from all
Yeah.
the women now. It's
I
so
know.
fantastic. Yeah. But
Crazy.
but
I'm
then
glad
again,
I'm older.
I know, right? But then
I
again,
don't know. Masters, this 50-year-old category is pretty intense too.
oh my God, no, it's like, yeah, seriously, it's pick your poison. Do you want to race against 19-year-olds or ex-pros?
Yeah, exactly. Seriously. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what it's like. You're like, oh my gosh, she used to be a national champion. I'm like,
Oh yeah, this is great.
I'm just here to finish.
Can I have your autograph first before we race?
Yeah, that's right. I know, but it's so true. Junior or masters? I don't know which one's going to give me a harder time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's super exciting. So can you share anything else with us, with our listeners, about the uphill climb? Give us
Yeah, I think, what's exciting about this film is it's really, it's from where I'm sitting with it, it's something that, and we're working on getting global distribution for it for next season. Um, and the conversations I'm having, and I believe the realization around this film is that this is not a static per se piece of content that's going to sit on a platform where you might scroll by and find it. We've got a marketing machine that's happening
Good.
in the background, where we'll start kicking off our own promotion for the film shortly. We're going to put out a media release next week, I believe. We've got, the website's been updated. We're working on an updated sizzle for it. But this July is really when we start our own promotion for ourselves, and letting the world know what we're doing. As we're covering the event, we'll be doing some fun things around the film now for people to see,
right,
so they can understand what's happening. And then we'll start our own, kind of countdown to 2023 along the way, and bring a party along with us, whether, with all the athletes and our brand partners that are coming on board, and the distribution partners. So it's, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I know. I do love the concept of, like, the ladies who started in 84.
Yeah.
84, 86. Yeah, 84. And to the now, because I've interviewed a couple of the ladies, that were in those pelotons, and it's just the stories are so unique and different. You know what I mean? Like it is a lot of hardship when you think about, or when you listen to them. It's like compared to now, because everybody's like got their soigneurs, and like it's like 5-star, 5-star service. Where back then there's like sharing rooms and like
Well, and paying their own way.
yeah, paying their way, standing on the podium with the men. It's like
Yeah, it's I still think we still have a ways to go for sure. But so again, having been around this sport for so long, seeing
the
you know
growth.
the growth and the the traction that it's getting. And I do think that I have a saying right now: the more we show, the more we grow. So, which is really important around this film, because the more that we're able to create and show people the stories all around the sport, it just generates so much interest for the sport itself. And that's big value to everybody involved and who took a risk, in diving deeper, which I think is really essential.
Yeah, I think it's important to know the history behind it and how far back it went. Because I mean, like 84, like where were you sitting? I was like heading into high school. I don't know.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, 84.
Yeah.
Grade
And
6.
and it had some TV coverage, but again, the promotion of it, nobody believed that anybody was going to care about women's racing. And now we're starting to see barriers broken and on all the playing fields, which is
oh my God,
really fantastic.
There's so much around cycling for women. Like there's so many women who've started developing brands around cycling for women. I mean, this can only get bigger, because exposing everybody to this. And
there's a moment, and I have to say that's the other thing that I said to Jill a few times, the film director, is that it's not lost on me that there's 2 women sitting in the director and executive producer roles, making a sports documentary about professional female cycling.
Yeah.
That's, that brings a little smile to my face.
Yeah. Every day.
Maybe every minute.
Can't wait till you guys see it. Going to see a little bit more every time, which is great. I love the little, if you're going to be sharing the more snippets during June, are you going to be able to
in July
stuff?
We'll probably do some some fun behind the scenes. We have actually a really good friend of mine who her name is Frankie, and she's one of these fierce humans also. She actually started a sustainable cycling bag company called Fierce Hazel, if I can give her a little shout out to that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, let's talk to her too.
Yeah, you should talk to her. She's pretty amazing. And when she's one of my cycling buddies, and when I told her about this, I mean, she basically raised her hand and said, can I help? Can I be part of this? And so she's part of our little posse. And why Frankie's also so incredible is she's an amazing social media. She's a photographer. She does amazing things with social media. And so she's going to help us capture some of the fun behind the scenes and bring it to everybody in July when we're out there. So it should be a good time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yay. So what handles should we be watching during that time where you're going to be posting all that good content?
So the main handle will be our Instagram handle, which is at uphill climb.film.
That's your website though.
The website is uphillclimbfilm.com.
Okay.
And the social media, so Instagram is at uphillclimb.film.
Okay, so that's the IG one.
Yeah, that's IG. Yep.
Let's make sure you are all following that. We are all following that. So that's at uphillclimb.film for
Yep.
IG. So follow that, and that's where you are going to be able to get all the little back end stuff, fun things as they are down in France in January, in June,
July,
capturing all the fun. So
all the fun. And we're also, again, in major fundraising mode. So if anybody's out there and wants to donate, it's not a formal Kickstarter, but there is a donate button on the website as well, which every penny helps.
Yeah. And I imagine on Instagram too, there's a place where they could.
We will make sure that is linked there. We're getting everything literally up to speed right now.
That's right. Fund me.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure that you are watching this Instagram page and that you share it, because this is so important for the sport of cycling for women. Maybe there's a sport cycling period, because you have no idea how this trickles down to recreational sport for girls in cycling, just showing your support and making sure that, you're just sharing that. So with that, thanks a lot, Allyson. This has been great. Is there any last words you want to say?
No, thank you. This is really, I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Oh, well, like I told Allie and Jill, we will have to have them back either in the fall or next year before they launch, so they can give us all the juicy details and tell us, or maybe I think it was in the fall, so that you could cover all the juicy details from the summer.
I will say this. Okay, there's one more last thing. Because when you said juicy details, every conversation, there is something new and fun that I'm learning. And so I know that with live sports production, that you lay your best plans, you make them, and then you get onto the field, and anything and everything will happen. So it's going to be a lot of fun when we're out there and seeing what unfolds.
And I see you got Frankie to capture it all.
And we got Frankie. Yeah, we got Frankie.
Like gonna be fun.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you so much, Allyson. Thank you to our listeners, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you follow the podcast on Instagram, and also make sure you go to the show notes and click on the newsletter link so that you don't miss an episode like this one. And we'll have yourself an amazing day. Thanks, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Allyson. It is so important that we support women in cycling, especially in the sport of cycling. So now that there is a Tour de Femme for going in conjunction with Tour de France, it is super exciting that we're going to be seeing more women out there on the forefront and making a stage for themselves. Let's all support, and don't forget to look for that film Uphill Climb, and it's going to be amazing seeing all those before and after interviews with women who started out at the front and now with the women who are on the tour. So with that, have an amazing weekend, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Secrets from the Saddle podcast, learning more about citing people, places, and things that make cycling such an exciting sport. I am so glad you stopped by today. Please leave me a review if you feel so moved to do so. I would love to hear your feedback. And if you could take 1 second to share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it, I would be forever grateful. Also, if you could please leave me a review if you feel so moved by going to iTunes and leaving me an honest thought and an honest comment, telling me what you think, and most importantly, tell me what you'd like to hear more of. It would really help me to bring more great, inspiring cycling stories to you. Until then, have an amazing day, make sure you ride your bike, And don't forget to visit my YouTube channel if you'd like to see the full version of this podcast live.